What happens when a crime that should have been solved long ago just sits in an archive, untouched for decades, waiting for answers that no one believed would ever come? What happens when justice seems forever out of reach, locked away with evidence that collected dust while a family waited in silence for half a century? This is the story of a murder that baffled investigators, puzzled the community, and remained the mystery for 58 years until the science of the 21st century finally cracked the code and changed everything. In June 1967, 75-year-old Louisa Dunne was found dead inside her own home on Britannia Road in Easton, Bristol, Britain, by a neighbor who had grown concerned after not seeing her at her usual spot by the front door. Louisa was a mother and grandmother, a well-known member of her community, twice widowed and quietly active in her neighborhood. On the morning of June 28th, her body was discovered in the living room, strangled, raped, and alone. Her life had been taken in the place where she should have felt safest. At the time, police launched a massive investigation. Thousands of men in the neighborhood were fingerprinted, and detectives uncovered a palm print at the scene. But even with thousands of comparisons and dozens of interviews, no suspect was found. The investigation stalled, the case file grew cold, and year after year passed without resolution. Louisa's family endured a silence that many believed would never end. Then, decades later, everything changed. In 2023, a cold case review team reopened the investigation and sent Louisa's preserved clothes, including the blue skirt she wore on the night she was killed, off for forensic testing with cutting-edge DNA analysis technology. The result was a match once thought impossible. DNA on that skirt pointed unmistakably to a man whose profile was in the national database, added after an unrelated arrest in 2012. Within months, police arrested 92-year-old Rylan Headley, who had never been charged or even seriously investigated in 1967. So how did this breakthrough come about after almost 6 decades? How did investigators finally piece together clues that once went cold? And what does this case tell us about the future of justice in unresolved crimes around the world? Stay tuned, subscribe, and let us take you through every twist of this extraordinary story. Louisa Jane Dunne was a woman whose life had once been filled with warmth and community, a stark contrast to the tragic fate that would befall her. At 24 years old, Louisa was known for her kind nature, her love for animals, and her deep affection for her family. A vibrant presence in her Bristol neighborhood, she had a strong circle of friends and relatives who fondly remembered her as someone always willing to lend a hand or share a kind word. Louisa had known hardship throughout her life, losing both of her husbands, Teddy Parker and John Dunne, but she remained resilient. By 1967, Louisa had found a sense of stability living alone in a modest flat on Britannia Road in Easton, Bristol, having outlived her second husband. She was 75 years old, though still active and independent, keeping herself busy with her daily routines. She worked at a local job and tended to her garden, where neighbors often saw her pottering around. In the evenings, she might sit outside to enjoy the quiet of the street or chat with a friend or family member. Louisa had built a life rooted in community, and her world, while quiet, was one filled with small pleasures and a sense of belonging. But all of that came to a sudden and brutal end in June 1967. On the evening of June 27th, Louisa was last seen by a neighbor, entering her flat as she always did. There was nothing remarkable about her behavior. She was simply returning home after what seemed to be a typical day. But the following morning, Louisa's life would be discovered to have been stolen from her in a horrifying act of violence. The discovery was made by a concerned neighbor on June 28, 1967, who, after failing to hear from Louisa, went to check on her. What they found inside her flat was nothing short of shocking. Louisa was lying on the floor of her living room, her body cold and lifeless. She had been strangled and sexually assaulted. There was no sign of forced entry, no indication that a struggle had occurred. The room was eerily undisturbed, with nothing taken from her apartment. The simplicity of the scene made the crime even more baffling. Why would anyone harm Louisa? And why had no one heard anything? As investigators arrived at the crime scene, they noted that the absence of a clear motive made this case even more perplexing. The victim had no known enemies, and her relationship seemed unmarked by conflict. There were no signs of burglary, and the only physical evidence left behind was a palm print found on a window frame. Police quickly took fingerprints from hundreds of men in the area, hoping for a match, but none was found. The lack of solid leads, combined with the mysterious nature of the crime, meant the investigation faltered. Over the following days and weeks, the investigation seemed to stall. Despite extensive interviews with those who knew Louisa and a widespread search for any evidence that could explain what happened, no suspect emerged. The palm print was analyzed, but no matches were found in the available records, and the case was soon classified as a cold case. Louisa's family, devastated by the loss, found themselves with little closure, while the community was left in shock. The idea that someone could enter Louisa's home and take her life so suddenly without leaving behind a trace of their identity was terrifying. Yet in the absence of a suspect or motive, Louisa's case remained unsolved, slipping into obscurity as the years passed. Louisa's family, however, never gave up hope. Her daughters, now adults, continued to carry the weight of the unanswered questions. They regularly appealed for information, hoping that someone, somewhere, might remember something that could lead to an answer. In the years that followed, her grandchildren grew up with stories of their grandmother, but never had the chance to know her. The long stretch of years without answers was hard for them all, but they carried on in the quiet way Louisa had always done, holding on to the hope that one day someone would finally come forward with the truth. Throughout this time, police continued to review the evidence from Louisa's case, though their efforts were often limited by the lack of technological advancements available at the time. The palm print, long held in storage, would remain a silent testament to the frustration of investigators who could not match it to any known suspect. It wasn't until decades later that advancements in DNA technology and forensic genealogy would open the door to what would become a game-changing breakthrough. But for now, in the late 1960s, Louisa's family, friends, and the community were left grappling with the pain of a loved one's brutal murder and the unrelenting question, who would do this to her? The unanswered mystery of Louisa's life and death would haunt the streets of Bristol, unanswered for almost 58 years. Little did anyone know that justice, though delayed, would one day be served thanks to the relentless pursuit of truth through modern science. When Louisa Dunne's body was discovered in her flat on June 28, 1967, the initial response from law enforcement was swift. Police arrived on the scene within hours, their focus immediately on gathering any potential evidence that could help explain her brutal death. Detectives combed the apartment, looking for signs of a struggle or forced entry, but what they found was perplexing. The front door to Louisa's flat showed no signs of forced entry, and the apartment itself had not been ransacked. It appeared as though nothing of significant value had been taken. At first glance, the lack of a clear motive led investigators to believe that robbery might have been the driving force behind the crime. However, the absence of stolen items presented a major problem for this theory. Louisa's purse and jewelry remained untouched, and nothing from her home seemed to be missing. The investigators now found themselves with a deeper mystery than they had initially anticipated. Why would someone go to such violent lengths to kill Louisa without taking anything? And who was the killer? These questions would linger unanswered for years to come. While detectives were focused on the apartment itself, Louisa's body was examined by a forensic pathologist who determined that the cause of death was strangulation. She had also been sexually assaulted, though there were no signs of a violent struggle or defensive wounds. This indicated that Louisa may have known her attacker, or at the very least had been caught off guard. The lack of physical evidence linking a specific person to the crime made it harder for detectives to narrow down their list of suspects. In the weeks that followed, police expanded their investigation, questioning neighbors and anyone who might have had a connection to Louisa. They spoke with family members, friends, and acquaintances, hoping to uncover a lead. But despite their best efforts, no one seemed to have seen or heard anything unusual in the days leading up to Louisa's murder. The neighbors who lived closest to her reported nothing out of the ordinary. No loud noises, no screams, no strange individuals lurking around her flat. It was as if Louisa's life had ended in complete isolation, leaving only her body as the solitary piece of evidence. As time passed, the investigation began to run out of steam. Theories swirled but offered little progress. Some speculated that Louisa may have been in a personal dispute, possibly with a lover or a family member, though no solid evidence supported this idea. Others suggested that the murder was a random act of violence, an opportunistic crime committed by someone passing through the area. But without any witnesses or viable leads, the case ground to a halt. The initial enthusiasm of law enforcement began to wane as detectives faced the difficult reality that they were not getting any closer to identifying a suspect. The absence of a solid lead or motive made it challenging to maintain public interest in the case, and the media coverage eventually faded, replaced by newer stories. What had started as a high-profile investigation soon became just another unsolved case. Months passed, and then years. Louisa's family, heartbroken and desperate for closure, continued to hold on to the hope that someday someone might come forward with information. They circulated her image, sought help from the public, and clung to the belief that justice could still be served. But the investigation stalled. Detectives were left with few options, and the case was officially closed, labeled as an unsolved murder that had gone cold. Louisa Dunne's case was quietly filed away, no longer a priority for law enforcement. In the years that followed, Louisa's case became one of many forgotten cold cases, left in a filing cabinet, never to be revisited. Forensic technology was still in its infancy, and DNA analysis had not yet become a widely available tool for solving crimes. Investigators had no way of knowing that the key to solving Louisa's murder was sitting in evidence lockers, untouched for decades. Despite the frustrations of the investigation, there were key pieces of evidence that had been preserved. Among them was Louisa's clothing, including the blue skirt she had been wearing on the night of her death. The clothes were carefully placed into evidence storage, but no forensic testing was done on them at the time. Investigators had no reason to suspect that the clothing could hold the secret to solving the case. More crucially was the palm prints found on a window frame. It seemed as though the print had been left by someone who had entered the flat through that window. However, with no suspect to match the print, it was a dead end. Investigators did not have the technology to run a database search, and the print sat in storage, essentially forgotten. As the years turned into decades, these crucial pieces of evidence continued to sit in the evidence locker, waiting to be discovered. Yet, without a break in the case, the investigation stagnated. Louisa's family continued to live with the uncertainty, but the possibility of finding answers seemed increasingly remote. But, unbeknownst to anyone, this evidence would play a pivotal role in the case's eventual resolution. Over time, advancements in forensic technology would change everything. What had once seemed like unsolvable mysteries, Louisa's clothing and the palm print, would eventually be the keys to unlocking the truth. As the years passed and DNA technology improved, Louisa's case was revisited in 2023, and it was only then that the DNA from the preserved clothing and palm print were put to the test in a way they never had been before. Modern DNA analysis combined with forensic genealogy would eventually bring the case out of the shadows and into the light. For over 50 decades, Louisa Dunne's case remained unresolved, locked in the cold case files of the Bristol police. The world around it moved on, technology advanced, and new cases emerged. But for Louisa's family, time did nothing to diminish the pain of her murder. Her daughters, now middle-aged, continued to fight for answers. Despite the overwhelming silence from law enforcement, they were relentless in their pursuit of justice, consistently revisiting the media with pleas for new information. They didn't let Louisa's memory fade. They couldn't. Each year, as the anniversary of Louisa's death passed, her family members found themselves reliving the heartache. They would return to the same questions. Who killed Louisa, and why? Despite the case going cold, they held on to the hope that someone would come forward, someone who might remember a detail, a sound, or a face that could finally bring the killer to light. Louisa's mother, who had lived long enough to see the investigation stall, never stopped grieving. The elderly woman kept a photograph of Louisa close to her at all times, and her prayers for justice never ceased. Her pain was compounded by the knowledge that the person responsible for her daughter's death was still out there, walking free. For Ellen Dunne, the years had done little to soothe the wound. It remained as fresh and as painful as the day she lost Louisa. The Dunne siblings carried the same burden. Louisa's brothers and sisters continued their lives, but the absence of closure weighed heavily on them. In private moments, Louisa's name was spoken softly, and the pain of her loss lingered in the background of their everyday lives. They kept their memories of Louisa alive, even as they lived with the painful reality that her murderer had never been caught. Over the years, various theories about Louisa's murder emerged, but none led to anything concrete. Some speculated that Louisa might have known her killer, perhaps someone she had let into her life, someone she trusted. The lack of forced entry into her flat made this theory plausible. If Louisa had opened the door willingly, it suggested that the killer was not a stranger, but someone she had been comfortable with. Another theory suggested that the crime could have been the result of a botched robbery. Some speculated that the killer had planned to rob Louisa, but had lost control of the situation, leading to the violence that claimed her life. However, this theory didn't align with the facts. Nothing of value was taken from Louisa's apartment, leaving the robbery motive unsubstantiated. The lack of stolen items made this theory seem increasingly unlikely. A third theory proposed that Louisa may have been the victim of a personal vendetta. Could she have been killed by someone with whom she had a conflict? Perhaps an old enemy or someone from her past. But once again, no evidence to support this theory surfaced. There were no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no tangible clues that pointed to a personal motive. This only left investigators more frustrated and led to the case being officially closed, eventually becoming a forgotten mystery in the archives of Bristol's police department. As the years passed, Louisa's case became just one of many unsolved mysteries. With no new evidence and no leads, it faded into the background of other criminal investigations. The family, however, continued to hold on to the belief that one day someone would come forward with information that could crack the case wide open. It was a fight for justice that never wavered, even as time wore on. By the late 1990s, advances in forensic science began to change the landscape of criminal investigations. DNA testing, which had been pioneered in the 1980s, was becoming more common and accessible, but the technology was still not fully utilized in cold cases. However, some law enforcement agencies began re-examining old cases using this new technology, often with incredible results. Yet Louisa's case remained on the back burner. For her family, the absence of new evidence and the lack of any breakthroughs in the investigation made it seem like justice would never come. The Dunne family's emotional toll grew heavier as the years passed, and the questions surrounding Louisa's death were left to hang unanswered year after year. Despite this, the fight for justice never stopped. Her children would occasionally appear in local newspapers, still pleading for help from anyone who might know something. Anything that could shed light on what had happened to Louisa. Their voices were often drowned out by the noise of newer, more immediate cases, but they refused to give up. They had lived with the pain for so long, and they weren't willing to accept that the mystery of Louisa's murder would remain unsolved forever. The case may have gone cold, but Louisa Dunne's family never gave up hope. Little did they know that decades later, the key to solving the case would lie in forensic breakthroughs they could have never imagined. As time passed, so did the advancements in forensic science. Throughout the years, DNA testing had already proven to be a powerful tool for solving a wide range of criminal cases, and by 2012 it had become increasingly reliable and accessible. However, Louisa Dunne's case remained unsolved. Despite the crucial palm print found at the crime scene, the forensic technology available in the 1960s was not sophisticated enough to match the print to a suspect. For decades, it remained a dead-end piece of evidence stored away in a box at the Bristol Police Evidence Locker. But this would change with technological breakthroughs that could breathe new life into cold cases. By 2025, forensic science had advanced far beyond the methods available in 1967. DNA technology had reached new heights, and the ability to link a suspect's DNA to evidence had become faster and more precise. Forensic genealogy, the science of using genetic databases to trace family connections, was now a powerful tool that allowed investigators to trace DNA to distant relatives and uncover the identities of unknown suspects. It was this modern-day method that would lead to the long-awaited breakthrough in Louisa's case. The breakthrough moment came when investigators decided to take another look at the preserved palm print found at the crime scene. Forensic experts re-examined the print using the latest DNA testing methods, specifically techniques that could extract DNA from old, degraded samples. To everyone's astonishment, a match was found. The DNA profile from the palm print matched a man with no prior connection to the case. This match was nothing short of stunning. After 58 years, Louisa's killer had finally been identified. The DNA led investigators to Ryland Headley, a man who had never been a suspect in the initial investigation. He had no previous history of violent crime and had not been on law enforcement's radar when Louisa's case was originally closed. But when his DNA was found to match the palm print, detectives were forced to reopen the case. A man who had once seemed like a ghost lingering in the background of the investigation was now the key to unlocking a decades-old mystery. The police, armed with this new evidence, moved quickly to build their case and bring Louisa's murderer to justice. With Ryland Headley identified, the investigation gained new momentum. Forensic genealogy played a crucial role in confirming the match. Using advanced research techniques, investigators traced Headley's family history. They discovered that one of Headley's relatives lived in the area around the time of Louisa's murder. This critical lead connected him to the scene of the crime. The police also learned that Headley had been living in the Bristol area in 1967, further confirming his possible involvement. But the breakthrough didn't stop there. Investigators dug deeper into Headley's past and uncovered a criminal record that had previously gone unnoticed. Headley had been involved in several minor offenses in his younger years, but they had never been connected to any violent crimes. The fact that his criminal record hadn't been fully examined during the original investigation meant that his involvement in Louisa's murder had gone undetected. In a sense, Headley had been lurking in the background, his past overlooked by investigators, until forensic technology caught up with him. Armed with a solid case built on the DNA match and genealogical research, the police moved quickly to arrest Ryland Headley. The breakthrough that had eluded investigators for so long had finally come to fruition, thanks to the power of modern forensic science. The arrest of Headley sent shockwaves through the community as the identity of Louisa's murderer was finally revealed. When Headley was arrested in 2025, he was 92 years old. He had lived a long life, but now The weight of his past actions would catch up with him. The investigation that had gone cold for decades had been revived, and after years of uncertainty and grief, Louisa Dunne's family finally had the answers they had so desperately sought. The emotional toll of living with an unsolved crime was immense, but with the new forensic techniques, the truth had finally been unearthed. The investigation was a testament to the power of modern technology and the ability of forensic science to solve cases that were once thought to be beyond resolution. The DNA breakthrough and genealogy research were key to solving Louisa's murder. What had once been a hopeless cold case was now a story of justice, albeit one that came decades too late for Louisa and her family. As Headley was convicted of murder and rape, Louisa's family could finally begin the process of healing. They had waited nearly 58 years for this moment, but they had never given up hope. The case of Louisa Dunne proved that even the oldest, most difficult cases could be solved with the right technology and determination. And for Louisa's family, it was the closure they had so longed for. The moment that Louisa Dunne's killer was finally identified was one that Louisa's family had longed for but never imagined. After nearly 58 years of unanswered questions, the truth finally came to light, and the man responsible was 92-year-old Ryland Headley. For decades, his name had never appeared on the radar during the initial investigation. In fact, he had not been a suspect at all. It wasn't until 2025, when forensic technology advanced to the point where DNA evidence and forensic genealogy could be utilized, that Headley's name was linked to the crime. The long-preserved palm print found at the crime scene was matched with his DNA, and his identity was uncovered through his family connections. For Louisa's family, this revelation was both bittersweet and devastating. Finally, after all these years, they had an answer, but the long wait for justice only deepened the pain. The truth came too late, and Louisa's loved ones could only reflect on the years of grief they had endured without knowing who had taken her life. The identification of the killer gave them closure, but it also left them to wonder why it had taken so long to bring justice to their mother, daughter, and grandmother. The arrest of Ryland Headley sent shockwaves through the community. For 58 years, Louisa's murder had cast a dark shadow over Easton, the area where she lived. Neighbors, family members, and friends had all lived with the uncertainty of who had been responsible for the crime. The community had watched the case grow cold, and while life moved on for most, there was always a lingering question: who killed Louisa Dunne? When the truth finally emerged, it was a moment of catharsis, but also one of profound sadness. Louisa's family, though relieved that they finally knew the truth, couldn't help but feel that justice had been delayed for far too long. Her daughters, who had spent decades searching for answers, now had to come to terms with the length of time it took for the investigation to reach this conclusion. Their pain was compounded by the fact that Headley, now elderly, would never face the full consequences of his actions in the way they had hoped. Headley's arrest and conviction at the age of 92 brought closure to a case that had seemed hopeless for so many years. But the family's long struggle for justice was a harsh reminder that the pursuit of truth can sometimes take far longer than anyone could expect. This case is a reminder that justice is often a long road, one that can span decades before it is finally reached. Louisa Dunne's family had lived through the uncertainty of an unsolved murder for most of their lives. But thanks to modern forensic science, DNA testing, and the advent of forensic genealogy, no case is truly closed, no matter how much time has passed. These advancements have the power to solve even the most elusive mysteries, bringing justice to families who had almost lost hope. While Louisa Dunne's case may have been closed in 2025, the process of seeking justice for her and her family was a testament to the persistence of those who never gave up. the family who refused to let Louisa's name be forgotten. And it also serves as a powerful example of how forensic technology continues to revolutionize criminal investigations, offering new hope to those who have long been left in the dark. From a chilling unsolved crime to the eventual identification of Louisa Dunne's murderer, this case is a powerful reminder of how justice can prevail, even after years of silence. For 58 long years, Louisa's family lived with unanswered questions, unable to find peace or closure. But thanks to advancements in forensic technology, DNA analysis, and genealogy research, a case that seemed unsolvable was finally cracked wide open. It was a long journey, one that took more than half a century, but it shows just how crucial it is to continue to pursue the truth, even when all hope seems lost. The tools of modern forensic science allowed investigators to connect the dots that were once too distant to reach, solving a case that had stumped authorities for decades. The breakthrough came when DNA from a palm print found at the crime scene, preserved for years, was finally analyzed with advanced techniques. This was the key that unlocked the identity of Louisa's killer, bringing justice to a family that had waited far too long for an answer. Louisa's family finally had the truth they had been seeking for nearly 6 decades. While it could never undo the pain they had suffered, the conviction of Ryland Headley at 92 years old was a bittersweet victory. It was proof that no case is ever truly closed, especially when the tools to solve it are just waiting to be discovered. Now, we want to hear from you. This case highlights the incredible potential of modern forensic techniques, and we want to know, what do you think about the role of DNA in solving cold cases? Do you believe that more unsolved mysteries could be brought to justice with these tools? Let us know in the comments below. If you're as captivated by these stories as we are, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible true crime stories. There are countless unsolved cases waiting for the technology to bring them to light, and together we can continue to explore the power of forensic science and the pursuit of justice.